Welcome. I'm Kevin Miller, and this is a podcast about how we make meaning of our lives and experience the miracle of living. In this episode, redefining hope and why it is the greatest predictor of your well-being. I think we've gotten to the point of defining hope as this expectation of something good that's going to happen in the future, maybe. But I've really found that many uh, people who I'd refer to as hopeful, they don't exude hope just in the future, but right here and now. A primary definition I found of hope is simply a feeling of trust, and that's current in the present. So, my guest in this episode says hope is the single best predictor of well being compared to any other measure of trauma recovery. So if hope includes having trust, then it's relevant for us all to consider how trusting that we feel in our lives, about our lives, not just on other people, but just again, overall life in general. So my guest is Dr. Julia Garcia. Julia is a psychologist and author dedicated to empowering people through the science of mental health. Julia works with people facing life's toughest moments, helping them overcome fear, doubt, and hopelessness to build lasting habits of healing and hope. She says her mission is to prove that hope isn't just something you feel, it's something you practice one habit at a time. I find hope and trust seems like it's in short supply in our current culture. And yet I find my own hope ongoing in the miracle of living as a constant fuel for the level of peace and joy that I do have. Julia has written a book on this work with hope. It's called The 5 Habits of Hope, Stories and Strategies to Help You Find Your Way. And we start off talking about these cultural concepts around hope and then walk and talk through her 5 habits of hope. So coming up next is my conversation with Dr. Julia Garcia and the relevance and 5 habits of hope. Julia, the topic of hope itself is always an area I am so interested in, and hope and hopelessness, both. So I'm eager to dig in there, though even above that, a line that I found, I think at least twice on your website, and I'm going to read it. You said, we can't always alter external landscapes we're up against, but we can level out the internal field we're on. And on some degree, I feel like, okay, of course. But then I also think, yeah, but we don't get it as a culture. I feel like I've never experienced a culture more focused on trying to control the external circumstances or overwhelmed and stressed out by the external circumstances. And not that they don't matter, but oh my gosh, I feel like I'm back to man's search for meaning with Viktor Frankl as my holy grail these days of my internal world is all I can really have a great impact on. And if I can secure that, I'm golden no matter what. So you putting that line, not once, but twice, maybe more on there. Well, you had me at hello then.
Well, you had me at hello when I read about you not just promoting and resilience, but sustaining it. So not just having habits, but having the emotional capacity to sustain them, the value system. So I think we're off to something right away. But that one, I actually, if I'm honest with you, it makes me emotional to hear someone else read that and to share that, because where that was coming from and where that is really the roots of talking about external versus internal is growing up in a community and in even with family dynamics where there were just so many, I would say, tragic, traumatic external circumstances, and there were no tools for any of us to navigate it emotionally. Like, what do you do when a parent's on drugs? Like, how do we learn how to deal with that at 10 years old, 11 years old? Or what do you do when a parent goes to jail? Like, how do you navigate that emotionally? And then seeing other people experience things. And then on top of that, there's social issues compounding things, and there's systems in place and not in place. And so really that is derived from not just like personal things, but also the external things I've seen and heard and researched people around the country and the world. Because I did have a global hotline during the height of the pandemic. So I heard a lot of the issues people were facing in Africa and Asia and right here in our own communities. And the external things are never ending, and they really have never been maybe wilder, I'll say is the word now, with the digital world and landscape. But internally, we're not catching up.
That right there, that line, internally, we're not catching up. I so concern myself with, such a focus on technology and AI and the evolving and progress that we're making. And yet from a humanity, from our psyche, I feel like, are we stuck or are we even devolving? I mean, the stats. We look at chronic illness and disease. We look at mental well-being, and all the stats are just showing we're getting worse and worse. And I feel like we're not understanding this. We seem to be unhappier and in more conflict than ever. Matter of fact, you had on, I think it's the top of your website, and you mentioned connection. And I feel like we are more in contact with each other, more communication with each other, but maybe less connection than ever.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
we're hyper connected. And this is part one of the book. I broke the book up into two parts because I didn't want to just write like some self help book. Not that I don't, appreciate, respect all of those, but I wanted to give context to why this issue mattered, not just to me, but like culturally. And so the first part of the book really talks about and dives into what I call became the big social media experiment. It was a social experiment, and how the digital world and the digital era has completely hyperconnected us, but we couldn't be more anxious, more lonely, more disconnected. And disconnection and despair are paralleled, or they're intertwined together. So when someone feels hopeless, despair, they usually also feel disconnected. So that those two kept coming up, those words that people would specifically use in the work that I do. They would say, I feel hopeless and I also feel lonely. So that's when I really started to dive into, well, how are we so connected but feeling alone? And I believe a lot of it has to do with the style and type of connection we have, the automated content, the engagement is what I would say we are consuming and not contributing to culture. So we are consuming other people's thoughts and seeing people connect and seeing people share, but our contribution is fading less and less, or it's becoming more and more filtered, or it's with AI replacing a lot of our original thoughts.
Well, Julia, I think you'll appreciate. We haven't even published the episode, but I had a guy, Bill Burnett, on the show a couple of weeks ago. He's a professor at Stanford, been there for like 40 years. So that's the
40?
context. He said there were dinosaurs there when he first started. So he's been there and runs the life design lab there. And
Oh, what is this and how do I participate? Can I go
yeah,
back?
I know I'll tell you, the book again, it hasn't come out yet. We haven't published it. It's how to live a meaningful life that they did through this lab. But to what you just said there, and why I bring it up, and because I got the book here beside me, is he said in the 40 whatever years that he's been teaching at Stanford, he didn't say he says we recognize the student populace as the loneliest
Yeah.
populace ever.
It was actually in the former attorney general made it an epidemic, said it's the loneliest generation of all time. There are many different like articles and research organizations who have also affirmed that it's the loneliest generation, but the most connected, hyper connected.
Yeah, at least lots of contact. Okay, tell me this in regards again to that external landscapes quote from you, and working on our internal field. I interest myself and focus a lot and doing a lot of research on quote, personal agency. That's the easiest term. But if you look up personal agency, most of the feedback you get is kind of with the idea of, okay, I can pull myself up by my bootstraps and I
Mhm.
can go out, kick butt, and take care of all this external stuff. It's not back to Viktor Frankl, what he talked about, where he had this, I'm going to call it inner agency, when he couldn't affect anything externally. He had no power, no influence. It was only inner. And so, personal agency being the kind of term that we talk about for empowering ourselves, but I'm wanting to give it the distinction of, and what I felt like you are speaking to internal agency.
Yeah.
Fair?
Yeah. And I have a story I want to share with you now that you bring up Viktor Frankl, who, man, if I could write like that, just such an
It's hard to have
inspiration.
that great of an example in your life to utilize, but yeah.
But I actually visited the one of the first internment camps ever in Germany. And when I was there, it was in the middle of winter, so it was freezing. And I'm walking around. It's absolutely like blistering cold, like not cute cold, like the blistering. Like this is so uncomfortable. I hate that I'm doing a walking tour. Right? I mean, first world problems here. Thinking about me doing a walking tour of an internment camp. Right? How cold I am. But there's photographs everywhere, and on the wall are the prisoners, the inmates, and they don't have coats on. Some, they don't have shoes, socks, definitely no beanies or scarves, and they are not equipped for what they're up against. They were, actually sent there to die, but they're also working. They're doing all these experiments on them. It was horrible, but I remember asking the tour guide, I said, "Was there ever a revolt in this internment camp?" And he looked at me and he said, "No." And I asked why. Not that he, knew exactly, but he said, well, one of the strategies was to beat them down emotionally to where they they were treated externally like they were less than human, and they were beat down and they were dehumanized to a point where eventually maybe they believed it. And it's the reminder, I think, of what you're pointing out is external circumstances are one thing, but irregardless of what they are, like the most powerful force to navigate any of it is what's going on internally.
Okay. On that note, another line then from your book: hope is the single best predictor of well being compared to any other measure of trauma recovery. Okay. I want to look at hope. And I think I actually yeah, I did. Yeah, when you search it, it says a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. But then a secondary definition is a feeling of trust. And I want you to talk about the distinction of hope. This is what I was considering, Julia, is I want to feel hope, not just for what may happen out there, hope that I can be okay out there, but I also, I kind of want present moment hope. And that's where I like them saying trust. And I thought faith. And it's not only faith that I'll be okay, but can I have that hope that I'm just okay now. I can be okay right here, right now. Thoughts?
Yeah, even aside from being okay or not being okay, I think there's hope in attaching who you are to being enough, to again going back to worth. Like I'm still worthy even if I'm not okay. I'm still enough even if I'm a hot freaking mess right now and I cannot figure this out. I still have people who care about me. I still care and am passionate about things even if nothing is going right for me. So not attaching hope to outcomes, but to these internal values and a sense of worth, that there is worth to my life, to my relationships, to my ideas, irregardless if someone validates them or if there's an outcome that I desire to happen or not to happen. And I think with the definition of hope that you shared, it's what most people would associate hope with, which is a feeling, right? Like what we feel about it. And it's so important that we talk about that because our feelings dictate a lot of our actions, right? Our feelings are kind of that root. So if we can attach our feelings to an internal value system, which I know you really stand for as well, is that inherent values to things like why we do what we do, then it really removes the outcome part of it and it allows us to come back to that present, right? Like what is valuable right now to me?
Okay. You said something that reminded me. Here's my preface to come into something you mentioned in the book, which I greatly, greatly value. A lot of my work and focus is on inner security. Again, the Viktor Frankl concept, I'll keep using him as an example, but inner security. Can I be just secure in my worth right here, right now? And had somebody ask, and it brought up the concept of, do I expect he's somebody? It was my mom. is my mom, is discussion with my
Shout
mom.
out to all the mamas out there. I'm a mama.
Yeah, there. Oh, well, if she hears this, I give credit where credit is due. And she said, "So is your goal?" And I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. Is your goal just to be? I'll exaggerate the point. Captain secure. Nothing phases you. Like, I'm just, in the lotus
Love
position.
this mama bear.
Yeah, she's going. Is that your
Fire.
goal? And is it even possible? And I said, well, and what I did is help myself come to, okay, maybe I can't be secure all the time, but can I be able to secure myself all the time? So there's my come into what you said.
Internal toolkit.
Okay, this is your line out of the book. Okay, you ready? I'm going to read you your book.
Yeah, tell me what I wrote because I forgot.
Okay, here it is. You said the 5 habits of hope are less about having hope all the time and more about always having a clear process for navigating yourself back towards it. So do I always 100,000% always have hope? Maybe not, but can I at any moment have a process for navigating myself back towards hope, even when I don't feel it in a moment? So again, that was another deal maker for me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that because that again is a reminder for me, not just where I come from and the things I've been through, but the really difficult things I've been beside people who have gone through, loss, grief, all kinds of things. And it's a reminder that hope isn't happy and you don't have to have a ton of hope all the time. You just need that little mustard side seed to help interrupt those thoughts. It's that little tool that helps us break up those thought cycles so that we can continue to rebuild back towards where we feel aligned.
You saying hope is not always happy. I have a chip on my shoulder, Julia, that I'll admit, with happy. I don't know that happy is the most fulfilling thing in my life. I am aware now of sometimes the challenge and the hardship and the struggle is some of the sadness even is some of the most fulfilling aspects of my life, and to some degree almost minimize just happy. I mean, happy's great in the moment, but so you saying hope isn't always happy. I that's the message I felt from your book is you're talking about an abiding. I do like the term faith. Tell me your thoughts on my aligning those two.
Definitely. And I felt what you said deeply. Hope this isn't in the book, but it's coming to me now. It's such a pureness, unbiased. It's a pure place of honesty. And if in that place wherever you're at, you're honestly feeling discouraged or disappointed or rejected or abandoned or defeated or exhausted, that's the only way hope can exist is if we're honest with whatever it is we feel. And I believe that the reason you're able to find find meaning, I'll say is the word. And if that's not the correct meaning of what you were saying with all of the feelings you shared, the sadness, all of the things, it's because you are allowing yourself to feel them in what's currently happening and what has been happening in culture for a while. But I do believe social media and in this digital era has propelled this happening more as we go on feeling detours where we do just about anything but feel. And that's because there's fear, there's repercussions, there's all these things in place, right? But your ability, you have done so much navigation and processing and work, and you've probably built a support system around your journey. And it's allowed you to be able to maybe feel anger and it not take you out, or to get sad and still put your heart out there, right? These feelings aren't taking from you, it sounds like. They're
I'm going to say yes and accept all you said and also admit how relatively new all of this is. And I have the collateral damage from not being able to do that, from it being what you talked about. I didn't feel, I did. I do things. Yeah. 100. Yeah. Nailed me. You send the invoice. Yeah, it's totally. But now, yes, but now I realize what I was missing, and I am reveling to some degree. I'm let's say, in awe of the deeper, you said meaning. Yeah, meaning. And we'll back to the other word you use, value, and finding value in sadness. I think that one's still that the feeling will come on, and instead of running for it, I may decide to dig into the feeling, and I'm allowing it a little disoriented. Like, who the hell are you? This is not, this is not the guy I used to look at in the mirror. I didn't used to look at the guy in the mirror. I guess it would be the truth. And now, wow, wow. So again, that's why you're here. Yeah.
I feel like if you did, I love that analogy of the mirror because if you did look at it, you would see maybe things at the time you didn't want to see, right? That's why we were maybe not looking in the mirror. But the more you look in the mirror, the longer you look in the mirror, the more you allow others to come beside you and look in the mirror with you and maybe give you another perspective as well. You, I believe, get to know who you were before all the other stuff started taken from it.
I'm not going to go in a linear place here, direction with you because you're hitting on some things that just stood out from the book. So this is one that may be pithy to you, but I don't think I'll forget it. It's a section in your book. I don't remember where it was. And you just called out somewhat our cultural propensity to, if we're sitting here talking right now, Julia, and I get emotional and start to tear up, my propensity, the cultural one, to go, sorry, hold on. Yeah. And totally, which unfortunately I don't even have the opportunity to do because of the difficulty for me to even get to that point to cry. But I would do that. I'm sure I would have done that. Would have. You're going to be my avatar now to not, and to maybe speak to someone else who does that says, sorry, please don't. Thank you for the gift, is what I thought. Instead of sorry, how about, or somebody saying that to me, go, oh my gosh, no, thank you for the gift. But why are we that way to apologize? Because I can be emotional without being overcome, taken over, and yet just be honest. I so want to be that.
I, it's got a little poetic flavor, but I say we can't actually deal if we're not real with how we feel. And a lot of times we associate feelings with weakness and we want to be tough. I think a lot of people who don't express emotion, it's not because they're being stubborn, it's because they care so much for others. There's not really a lot of space they've created in their lifestyle design, to go back to the Stanford class or whatever that is, the program. They haven't really designed it into their life that they're allowed to be cared for. They're allowed to have space. And the best way I can say this is I was actually doing a podcast once with a young woman who's a lawyer, and she's this incredibly high performing, insanely successful young woman. And she never would break, right? Because she was always doing all of these things, being really successful and just high performer. And she was talking about how she felt a little bit lonely. And I knew this person had a really strong relationship with their sibling. So I said, does your sibling know about this? And they said no. And I just revisited maybe a perspective of, if your sibling were really struggling, wouldn't you want to be there for them? It's like, don't jip her from that opportunity to be there for you, because you're not the only one who cares for caring for others, right? And so I say the best thing we can do is not just share our struggles, but share our strengths. And if we can really get good at allowing both to coexist at once, we share all the shiny, but can we also share some of the struggles?
I'm learning. Again, our topic here is hope, but you talk about that. I mean, half of your book is the preface up to your, 5 habits for hope. And in there, I just found myself drawn to certain concepts that you shared. One is, how could I help myself if I hated myself? I think you were talking about your own story, and hate's a strong word. I don't know if everybody will relate to it, but I was thinking, how can I help myself if I just have disdain for myself or apathy or negligence or indifference. And that last one really, I resonated with that. I think I didn't hate myself in the past, but it's always a little disappointed. The kind of the perfection concept, and I never added up, thought it was my job to be my own slave driver. And I was just kind of indifferent to myself. I'm a tool to get things done. I'm a tool to win a race. I'm a tool to achieve this. I'm a tool to be a great dad. It wasn't all bad stuff, but I just was indifferent to myself. So back to your statement, I'll replace it with my term for me. How can I help myself if I'm indifferent to myself? I'm going to continue with, I may have, I don't know if this is right out of your book or if I paraphrased, but no, I think this is right out of your book. You said behavioral modification won't change that core feeling. Hate, indifference, whatever it is. Behavioral modification won't change it. And then you said external factors won't change this. And I just, it's kind of like a ding ding. If it did, right now we got the Olympics going on. If it did, every Olympian, every Olympian period, just being there, much less winning a medal, they would all be great with themselves. It'd be nothing but
Mhm.
huge high self-worth and internal joy. And Viktor Frankl's running all over the place. And of course it's not. And we hear the stories of these people and they got 5 gold medals and they committed suicide or whatever to exaggerate the point. But how can I help myself? Well, let's say that you're equating your ability to help yourself, equating that, correlating that to how you feel about yourself. Fair?
Yeah, what's interesting is, and I'm not gonna say maybe it was apathy, but I do wanna associate indifference a little bit with apathy when we, like, kind of feel
Okay.
nothing about something. And in a study done about hope, that was actually, determined to be worse than hopelessness, is
Okay.
apathy.
Wow.
And I think I think what's important about that is when our spirit, when we talk about faith, like the spirit within us, when that is numbed out, then that's the real question, right? Of who are we? Instead of if I don't achieve or do this or accomplish this, then who am I really? But it's like how do I keep my spirit alive? And um, in a lot of times, if you don't like yourself, like me, you really suppress your spirit because you don't want anyone to see it because you think it's bad or wrong or not good enough, right? So you don't want anyone to see it. So you suppress your own spirit, and that's really the danger. Um, I believe that study was referring to. They did not say that, but that's what I believe when they were saying that apathy was more dangerous than hopelessness.
Um, okay, let's go there because you said something else I want to pick on too. But apathy isn't Julia, maybe you're more up to speed. I haven't looked at it in a while, but there was a time in the past years where they said, looking at the chronic illness and disease stats, that not the greatest category, but the fastest growing at the time was diseases of despair, which I think is headlined by depression. And I think the word was apathy, and just suicide is in there at the high end. But I think apathy was a highlight in the diseases of despair, which at the time I think was the fastest growing. Does that ring true?
I've actually haven't heard that term before, so I appreciate you bringing something new to me that I'm gonna deep dive into, but it definitely makes a lot of sense, because hopelessness affects it shuts down the brain that has the very systems that help us to move forward, the motivation, the goal setting, even our immune response, so it makes sense, because hope is a cognitive science, even though we mostly communicate about it, and it kind of affects our life based on how we feel about it, but it shuts down systems in our brain, and this affects our nervous system. And yeah, that's going to spike anxiety, that's going to spike stress, that's going to probably propel us to isolate more, which is not good if you're feeling those things, and it can just do this cycle of things just shutting down one by one.
I'm going to go back to that phrase that you said of this isn't about, I'm paraphrasing, about being king hopeful all the time, but about always having a clear process for navigating yourself back towards that. So that brings us to the 5 habits of hope, which I'll just speak them out and then we'll dig in a little bit. Reflect, risk, release, receive, and repurpose. Uh, So they're reflecting. So this is, and again, I want to keep coming back because I just enamoring myself with these are what you have outlined through your work with thousands and thousands of people, as this is a process to navigate yourself back towards hope. And I even found myself thinking of this is how we manufacture hope. These are the processes. So when you feel hopeless, when you feel apathy, these are this is what we can engage with to grow it. Fair?
Navigate back towards it.
Navigate back towards it. Okay. It's there. We're not growing it. We're just going back to it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Reflect. Reading that segment, my first thought was the word auditing myself, auditing my internal state. And then I attached a word that I've been stuck on for about a year, and it was being sober. And in this case, well, I don't know, emotionally sober, kind of being honest with myself. How does that encapsulate my paraphrasing of reflecting?
Yeah, I think when you say sober, I feel like senses being awake, right? You're I don't wanna use the spiritual term awakened, but I think about
That's fine.
senses, and I think sometimes we can compartmentalize different aspects of our senses, who we are, right? We filter things not just online, but internally as well, and it's really allowing all of your senses to be alive, and it's
Okay.
being a
You
yeah, alert to all of them.
okay, you said not compartmentalizing. And a minute ago you said it, and I said I was going to come back to it and I forgot. So thanks for bringing me back. And it was suppression. Somebody brought that to me recently. It was in a podcast that I was on actually, but the term came up and I realized, and I kind of divulged there, that I think that that's been one of my primary habits is suppression. And not only did I engage with suppression, did I do it? I actually agreed with suppression. I thought I was doing the world a favor by being Mr. Cool, calm, and collected no matter what, and even protecting people from myself or themselves by being, again, captain compartmentalizing suppression. I found myself in reading on the reflect habit in your book of thinking this is your call out to drop that stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I identify more than I could explain. I actually wanted the book to be called originally The Cycles of Silence, and it was going to be really framed around suppression. There is a
Wow.
portion in the book called The Cycles of Silence, so I do speak about it, but it only made a couple pages. It didn't become the entire book. Maybe another time, but suppression, I'm still angry to this day, and I was very angry. I remember when I first found out about it, I kind of thought there was so much wrong with me, and it took me going to grad school. I did drop out 3 times, but one of the stints in grad school, I heard the words internal suppression, and I was so angry that I had no idea what that was before that moment, but it sounded the alarm of like, you're not crazy. You are not out of you. There's not something wrong with you. There are things that suppress us externally, right? But when you start to believe the things yourself, when you start to believe you don't deserve, you're less than, you're not enough, you're not good enough, I fill in the blank. When you start to believe it, it becomes an internal suppression. So when you said agreement, that is exactly that. We agree to it now. It's like what I said and shared earlier about the internment camp. When the prisoners were told they were not human, that they were less than human, maybe that's one thing to hear it, but when they started to believe it, it was a totally different situation. That's internal oppression. And that's again goes back to my anger about it, my righteous anger about this, not knowing what this was and how to navigate and unpack it with this new knowledge of like, I'm not crazy. This is something, right? That goes back to we don't always have the external, we can't control the external outcomes, but how can we equip people internally more?
Julia, why do you think, what are some highlight reasons or causalities maybe that if you look at our culture now and saying suppression is high, emotional suppression, internal suppression is high, why?
Well, there's actually top 3 reasons that in my research, surveying hundreds of thousands of people around the country, from students to parents to organizational leaders, educational institutes like superintendents, teachers, things like that. And the top 3 reasons are: 1, they don't want to be a burden. So this is the opposite of like, oh, this is selfish culture, right? No, it's like they're actually trying to look out for you. They're holding it in because they're trying to help you out, right? Um, so don't want to be a burden. Don't want to be a burden. I don't want to get these wrong. They are in the book. Don't want to be a burden. Don't think anyone cares. That one always gets to me, that they don't think anyone would care, especially when you see it in handwriting. That it's heartbreaking. It makes you want to cry when people literally write that they think no one cares about them, and they don't think people will understand, being misunderstood. And I would
I
also add they don't want to look weak.
Yeah. I can attest to all those. Um, I
Which
my
one?
Here's a curious one. Don't want to look weak. I also though feel like, and maybe I'm misleading myself a little bit, that there is just ignorance. If I perceive myself as being so emotionally unintelligent, somewhat disconnected. It was like a language. It's like if somebody said, gosh, how much time do you spend speaking German? None. I have no exposure to this German language. Why would I do that? It was kind of like that. Tell me about your emotions. What?
Yes.
It's
Yeah, so exposure is a great, I mean, man, you landed it. I don't know. Was there more you want to say on
No,
that?
no, go.
Okay, because exposure, there's one thing, information exposure, we are inundated with that, right? Inundated. We can get information any day, time, whatever. But experience exposure is very different. It's extremely rare, which is why I do not do traditional lectures. That's just my style, my format. I try and create an experience where there's like real time activities, real time transformation, real time conversations, facilitation, all. It has to be an experience. They have to walk away being like, I actually don't know what that was. That was supposed to be a keynote, but I feel like there was some things happening, right? Because exposure without experience can only stick for so long. That was really good. We should like write that down because I don't think I've ever conceptualized it that way, but
Say it
that's what
again.
we
Say it
mean.
again.
Okay, exposure without experience won't stick. Is that what I said?
I
I
got
don't
it.
know. We'll have to play.
I got it. I got it written down.
Awesome.
All
Share
right.
that with me later.
We'll make a T-shirt out of it. The I like your term or your reference to your speaking. I know you do a lot that you don't do lectures. It has to be an experience. I do not enjoy lectures, and I'm doing a gigantic speaking engagement this summer, and I'm doing a conversation. So I'm going to be doing this with
Yes.
somebody on
Congrats
stage.
on that, first of all.
Thanks.
We need more people to step into that and to be courageous and to communicate in a way that's authentically you. Because guess what? There's no rules. There's no rules to being a speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. Not many rules anywhere, I think, these days.
Right,
So
right. If a
reflect.
4-year-old can download an app, I can do poetry and do activities in my job. So,
Thank you. And I do appreciate your focus on poetry. I did my first show on a book of poetry I think we published it a couple weeks ago, and I'm growing. I'm growing in there. All right. Second habit here is risk.
mm,
And I feel like you kind of juxtapose the concepts of feeling weak or feeling worthy. That was the section where you talked about our propensity culturally to, if we show emotion, especially crying, to say, I'm sorry when we are, uh, vulnerable. But I wanted to highlight your focus on risk because I'm going to include myself. I view us as a culture, going back to mental health stats right now and the sense of unwell being that we have. I feel like why have we gotten, it feels like we have gotten to be the most fragile culture ever.
Oh, I feel like we're set up to fail, actually. I
Okay.
feel like the infrastructure is what's fragile.
Tell me.
I feel like especially, I would say the younger generation, man, they have been exposed to so much trauma on just repeat. There, there are just no guardrails for them right now. There's none. They can literally access anything at any time. They can be triggered at any moment. And we're all navigating things in a different way from where we're at. But the younger generation who is growing up with technology, I feel like the infrastructure is not there to support them. And I think that people in society are misplacing that and putting it on them. First of all, they're not even developmentally ready to take accountability for all these things we're putting on them, being sensitive, being fragile. I think that the infrastructure is what's fragile. It is a lot of the culture in which they are growing up is created by a very small group of people in an elite group who do not have any mental health well-being, at least in the beginning. Now it's like, how do we fix the what we did? But in the beginning, mental health was not in the actual infrastructure of the cultural designs in these digital landscapes that they've grown up.
Okay. I want more because I made a reference to feeling like the culture is more insecure and fragile than ever. I got pushback from someone and said, well, first, how do you measure that? And what about back with, World War, whatever, two, when we were going through that and the cultural insecurity or the Great Depression or whatnot. But I feel a difference. One of my dear friends, Jake Eagle, a psychotherapist, differentiated fear. He said, fear is there's a real and present danger. There's a bear about to attack you, or there's a war going on, or there's COVID, or there's something that's literally a threat to your physical well-being. Different than anxiety, which is not a real and present fear necessarily, but is a worry in essence. And it seems that we are suffering more
Mhm.
from anxiety than from real and present danger or that's not fair. Help me out.
No, no, I totally get what you're saying, but just talking about like World War II, right? Like something like that. People really struggled with addictions, with like abuse to alcohol and drugs at the time. So
Fair.
why I say that for context is it wasn't like the problems internally have really not been there. It's just there was a different numbing method before, and now we're way more exposed to other people opening up about things. So now it's like, oh shoot, that's what it is. That's what it. Maybe that's what it. And then people are going on their own journeys. Some people are maybe following other people instead of maybe staying on their own journeys. That could be a little something in there too. But yes, anxiety is it feels very real. So if you're struggling with if you're having like panic and worry and stress, and maybe there's nothing to us for you to be stressed out about, right? We're like, what are you doing? You're going, your life is awesome. What's the matter? We're just going to the movie right now. But it's very real for them. And that's not to say that that wasn't happening in other generations, but there was a much different way to not navigate that. People weren't
Okay.
talking about it.
With this is with risk is the easy terminology with this that you're talking about. We need to risk being honest with our feelings. Is that too simplistic?
No, I think it's any emotional risk. And only you know where you hold back emotionally. Only you know. So it could be in a relationship, it can be professionally, not taking that emotional risk, right? Not trying again after feeling like a failure. That's an emotional risk, right? That's a performance tied to an internal belief system. So it's these emotional risks that I'm speaking of. I love the external adrenaline junkie risks, right? I've jumped out of a plane a bunch of times, and I'm sure as a competitive athlete, you like the adrenaline rush, maybe like me, but it's an emotional risk, and it's very different than external risks because it requires us to look in the mirror, like you referenced earlier, and
Okay. Well, you just
to allow someone else to see us.
yeah, that's uh, I'm in that. I've lived in that club my entire life. External risk, man, bring it on. It's actually
Oh,
fun.
right?
Still is, but
Uh,
emotional risk, that's
I'm a little more scared now. Roller coasters. I'm always like, okay, what if that little button just flies out? Now I'm like overthinking because of the kids. And yeah, so I can't just like YOLO the way I used to.
yeah, okay, well, I gotta
I
admit
want
that
to.
too. I'm just gonna say I'm more mature, maybe.
No, I don't think I got mature. I think I just got like
Scared. I
like
don't
a sissy. I became a
yeah.
sissy.
Yeah, well, okay. I'm not gonna risk that much vulnerability. So we'll move on to the next one. Um, release. All right, this one, um, release. My right away thought as I started reading Letting Go. I have the book Letting Go by, I can't remember the guy's name, Watkins or Hawkins, I think it was, David Hawkins. And so many people, especially from a spiritual standpoint, if you're talking, I don't know, Eckhart Tolle or whatnot, so much of this just letting go and accept. So difficult for me to, well, go to number 4 habit to receive
Mhm.
that
I
concept.
feel like
And yet,
number 4 might be your biggest, tension there. But I don't wanna jump ahead, but I feel like that knowing what I've learned about you, I would feel like number 4.
possibly the release didn't even feel, I don't know if it felt hard. I just couldn't conceive it. What do you mean release? And kind of along that letting go and accept. Well, first off, am I tracking with those concepts too? Letting go and accepting being part of what you're pointing to with release.
Yeah, I say what we release releases us. When you think about suppression, you can only contain so much. And there was a point in my life where I suppressed so much where it started coming out in ways I could not control. And so for some people, it can come out in like raging anger, violence. It can come out in self destruction, self harm, self injury. It can come out in, and that doesn't always have to be physical. You could emotionally be trying to sabotage a relationship, right? So it's not just external things that we do when we self destruct. And for me, I got to a point where it is a miracle I made it out of my 20s alive. I did so much self destruction internally and externally. And it got to a place where I couldn't suppress any longer. It was slipping out. And I literally didn't have a choice. For me, it was a life or death choice to figure out how to release things. And for a long time, verbal communication, words were not how I could do it. I could not for the life of me. You couldn't pay me to cry in front of you. I I paid someone else and I still couldn't cry in front of them. I tried. I was setting myself up, positioning myself to be vulnerable, and I couldn't get there. There were so many walls. And I haven't shared this story yet, but I feel like I should share it with you right now.
Please.
So I have a great friend who's a world renowned yogi. He's the yogi Matt. Okay. You can look it up. I'm not lying. He is world renowned in yogi and all the things he does. And when we were younger, I had never been to a yoga class. And even though he's working up his yoga career at the time, and he was like, "Do you want to come to a class?" And I was like, "Fine." I was not into any kind of like relaxed peace. Like that wasn't me. I was more like we described earlier. I want adrenaline. I want to go jet skiing. I want to like anything else. So we go to this yoga class. And at the end of the class, they had us lie down on our back. I wish I could show you. I can't lay down with this wall behind me. But we lied down and then they put a towel over us, like a little blanket, and then like a warm towel, I think, over my eyes, if I can remember. And then they said to put your palms up and then your feet kind of just out relaxed. And when I tell you the second I my palms went up, even though I had this little towel thing on my eyes, I was like, I am going to lose it. I'm about to have an emotional meltdown. Like I'm gonna freak out. I need out of here because I got so emotional being still. And I had never in my life experienced that kind of stillness. It was always do, 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 sleep because you have to, get going, get moving, like build, try and prove myself, all the things. And I had never, my mom always said, or my stepdad said, if your head wasn't attached to you, you would lose it because I was just always on the go. And it was the first time I realized that I understood the practice of being still can also be a form of release. Because I had to be still enough in order to let something out.
Julie, you said palms up. One of my closest friends, who I cite as a spiritual mentor, he is my guru of palms up. And that was not my life. My life was gripping,
Mm,
controlling, do what it takes. And when he brought me palms up, I feel like, and I've got my own filters around that, but just the kinesthetic movement of palms up.
mm. I still feel like I
Yeah.
can go back to feeling the nakedness about
Yep.
having my palms up. I felt like shame. I felt dirty, like uncomfortable, all those things.
Yeah. It feels vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, our arms aren't even constructed to do it that well. I have to make the effort to palms up and then to have your palms exposed.
I
Yeah.
don't know if you are listening, but if you don't feel what's happening right now, that's like there's so much in that. There's so much there.
Yeah. I almost don't know where to go from there. I think I'm going to do a palms up session when we're done
I
here.
love it. Palms up because in that position, and you said the word gripped. My sample chapter to my publisher was actually about that. That was the word. That was like the opening line about how we learn how to fight at a young age, and it's not a class we're taught, but we learn how to fight. But it's not just external things; it's the internal battles that we have, and it's that gripping, that holding on, that leads to the suppression, right? But it starts with that gripping, that withholding. And I do this exercise. Do you want to do it? Can we do
Yeah.
it? Okay, great. Because we're talking about palms. Okay, so grab both of your hands. And each of the habits, just if you're listening to wanting some more tools that we don't mention here, each of the habits are equipped with an exercise you can do, like a prompt. So this one is for release. Are you ready? Okay. So what you do is you think about a struggle that you didn't really open up about. It could have been years ago, days ago, minutes ago. You got it locked in? Okay. Now, both of your hands, if you're able, put them in a fist that you described, grip them tightly. Now, if this was a really difficult struggle for you, I want you to grip even tighter, like as tight as you can. You going for it? Okay. Now, for me, I have nails, so make sure just don't hurt yourself. Okay. I know you're going to push yourself to the limit no matter what I say, but just don't hurt yourself. Don't start shaking. People start turning pale. So if I were to walk over to you or someone was to walk over to you, could they open your palms, your hand?
Think so, unless they were really big.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm really big and tough, so I think I could. No. Okay, so I want you to think about if for the rest of the day, I think you're in Pacific time zone, I'm not sure,
A
but
mountain.
Mountain time zone. For the rest of the day, you are going to operate your day with these fists just like this. Now, I'm
God help
actually
me.
really doing this, so it's hurting at
It's
this point.
terrible.
I want you to go eat whatever you're eating. If you're having chicken later, I want you to try and get the fork. I want you to go on your phone, answer your notifications. I want you to give somebody a hug. I want you to sleep like this. I want you to do this as long as humanly possible. And I bet you could figure out, if I gave you that incentive, I bet you could figure out how to do it. You would probably be
Yeah.
up to figure it out, up for the
Sure.
challenge. And most people listening, y'all, it's not being stubborn. It's not stubbornness. It is so many things. It's like all of the mixture of just how we approach anything. We approach things, gripping with bare brute force, doing it on our own.
Yeah.
So I don't know if yours is hurting, but mine is. And if you're doing this while listening, okay, we're going to relieve ourselves right now. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. What's the first word that comes to mind?
Oh, just relief. Either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is it takes effort to also let go. And it might feel a little uncomfortable and weird and shameful, right? But when you release, now you're available to receive. But there's a risk in that. That's why we have to I think they should go in order, but if you wanna go out of order with habits, but if we can continue to sharpen our emotional habit of risking, then we know that no matter the outcome, maybe you get slapped, right? Because your hand's open now, maybe someone comes and slaps it, but you'll like who you're becoming because you're choosing someone to be brave.
Yeah, Julia, I had 2 people through a transition that was dramatically difficult for me. The two guys closest to me, my brother and then a close friend within a short span of time. I don't know if it was within a day or a couple days or whatever, but both came to me with the concept of, I can't remember who kind of made it well known, Alan Watts or somebody, I can't remember, of be like water. And obviously impacting to me. It wasn't just an easy release and now I go be water, but it was maybe a beginning release. It was the initial release. I had a friend recently who I'll give credit to, Marianne Renner, talking about this, and she said she was playing right now with the concept of gripping and palms up, with also the like if you're picking grapes, you've got to you've got to have a grip to pull them off there, but you can't clench or you're going to squeeze the grapes. Can you do both a little bit? I, I'm playing with such things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really understanding when each needs to happen, right? Like, when we do need to grip, because that is a defense, and it's well, it's supposed to be there, right? We're supposed to protect ourselves as well, but we know when, one is for holding back because it's familiar or more
yeah.
comfortable.
Well, receive is your fourth habit, and the first word I have written under that is trust,
Mm,
which is a word that continues. I continue to grow my value and my interest in the word trust and what that means to us as a culture, what it means to me, and how I think, really pulling into question where my trust is and is not. I think I don't have that defined yet. I think I'm aware of feeling like I have been trusting and realizing I don't think so. I
yeah.
don't think so. Tell
Can you
me.
what do you mean specifically by that? Or you don't have to be super specific, but is there an arena that you're pulling that from?
I I wonder, Julia, if I say that I trust people, but I don't really. I just trust that I will be okay,
Mhm.
especially with my, external abilities or whatnot, but even more so now with, internal wellness. And then wondering, but do I think if we look at my actions, we would show that I'm probably over self-reliant,
Mhm.
over, uh, don't ask for help, don't rely on others. And I think my other note, under receive from your book, was receiving love. I am still aware of I'm learning. I think I've made great strides recently in receiving, I don't know if love, but even receiving people's testimony of my positive impact in their life. I was just at an event and had a lot of that, and just at least aware enough to watch myself and to go, you don't really know what to do with that, do you, Kevin? How does that feel? I don't know where I am there. So I'm a lot of questioning.
But I love what you just said because I think that, and I could be wrong, so go ahead and redirect me, but even this idea that you have to know, like, what is that? Why do you always have to know?
Okay. Yeah, you spot on. Spot on. I am striving to grow in security and peace in the uncertainty. But I would say what you just picked out is my core nature still reveals me.
There's no striving in presence. There's no performance in presence. There's no perfection in presence. There just is. That's the water. That's just the water. Yeah, it can be manipulated to be a ripple effect or a tide, right? It can be manipulated by those things, but water itself is just chilling.
It I find myself watching my words because it's so easy to say, "Oh, I'm striving to be present." Well, you just screwed it.
But even that, like, it's not even like being present is not it if it's something we have to grow in, then again, it's an effort and performative. So there's no, like, doing it right or doing it wrong. It's just really this, like, navigation back to self, like, "Oh," it's just it's not about, "Oh, I was present or I wasn't," because then it's like, now it's this goal thing that we have to strive for. It's like setting us up to fail, right? It just it is or it isn't, and that's it's okay. Like, we just try and get more with the I would say alignment is the word I think that you can maybe resonate with. I think about driving a car and you kinda know when you're jerking it around, like, I don't know much about cars, but I do know that I feel the thing when it's misaligned, right? So it's really just getting more back to aligned, and in Christianity and my spiritual faith, we talk about, the aligning being really what we're going for as far as, like, even being Christ-like. It's really I'm not gonna get there. But can I just align myself with my values and my beliefs?
Okay, I'm a fan of that analogy of alignment, of feeling like we tend to, or I tend to look. I think I've looked at alignment as either if your car's out of alignment and you're not holding the steering wheel, you're just going to drive off the road. So we, as our strong, externally capable selves, just grip that thing and we keep it in line. My gosh, I'm so exhausted.
It's the gripping, right? It's
Yeah,
the remember I said you would figure it out. You'd use your nose for your
sure.
phone, you'd use your elbows to do something. You'd figure it out, and that is us being performers.
Yes. Yes, I'm reforming. There's another
You're a
R, of course.
reforming performer. You
Yes.
just gotta retire, just retire
Okay.
that part of
Okay,
yourself.
okay, okay, fair.
Give it a rest.
I'll
Give it a
accept that.
vacation.
You're okay, so I'm gonna pick on Christian faith because that has been my construct my entire life as well, that I still align with, to a great degree. The last one, repurpose.
Mhm.
So I wrote down, I don't know if this is out of the book or just or paraphrase or written right out of the book, a quote or my paraphrasing that our pain can have a purpose. Okay, but I'm going to pick on that because I did grow up with that concept of no matter what happens, it can be redeemed. S- Agree with that. Don't like the construct of justifying everything that
Oh,
has
heck
happened.
no. Yeah, I did not grow up in this construct of Christianity, so
Okay.
I poke holes at it all the time, and I think part of my, experience with it has actually been just brutally honest, and, I have really had a lot of tensions in my faith journey, a lot, because, yeah, I you can't expect for someone to, do something great with something without acknowledging the bad. I ended my dissertation with a quote from somebody, I don't know their name off the top of my head, but it was something around the sentiment of we can acknowledge the something about loving the stars in the sky, but we have to acknowledge the darkness around them that allows them to do that, right? I botched it, but it spoke to me so much because I think a lot of the work, and especially with this book about hope, I first was like, I'm not writing a book about hope. This is way too fluffy. This is way too joyful. This is not the kind of like weight that I really wanted to say things with. But I realized that that's why the book has two parts. Is I really wanted to approach hope in a way that isn't without the hopelessness, the heartache, that is also uprooting the things that block us from hope and bringing context to all of it. Because, yeah, heck no, I do not support just like, oh, we're going to just make it better and it's redeemed. No, we got to uproot that first. We got to figure out and then we got to get to the honest root of something before hope. Again, hope and honesty have to coexist.
So with hope being or repurpose being a part of your path towards back to hope, is there any more you would unpack than that, just that our pain can have a purpose? I think people are used to hearing that. I don't know that it gets that much traction. I think we hear those things, that let it be a lesson, let yourself grow from that. We hear that, but I think I've questioned myself that I've made it through. And I have faith that no matter what happens, I'm going to make it through. I'm going to be okay. But did you learn anything, Kevin?
But no, I gotta pause you for a moment with that. Let's reframe. No learning, no understanding, no growing allowed for the duration of this. No growing, no learning. It's just journeying through. It's discovering. It's curiosity. And those perspectives allow us the fullness, allows our spirit. If you believe in the Holy Spirit, allows our spirit to come out and to have a say, because we're not in control. We're not trying to determine something. We're not trying to figure something out. That's that stillness, that water that it allows it to be manipulated, right?
Yeah, the water and the letting go. Still, I am maybe growing in familiarity with, still disorient myself a lot. It's been a
No
long,
growing. You don't have to grow.
yeah,
No.
yeah,
I like to say, and if I could show this in a way
yeah.
visually, it's going to be very hard, but I have some paper here. So this is you. Okay, you're this awesome yellow leather notebook, beige, whatever. Your whatever reason you got to be a high performer, right there. All your productiveness inside of you, right there. Maybe external things you've been through here, people who've impacted your life here, etc. All the things that kind of have like influenced who you are, right? All the things that have motivated you to get to this space where you want to grow, you want to grow, you want to learn, you want to evolve, you want to all of those things, right? All of that's on here. I believe that the process of navigating and being on our journey, being present, allowing our spirit to be fully alert to all of our senses, right? To not be in a position of we have to grow, we have to know, is just taking it, reflecting on it, and then putting it in a place that's not on top of us. So it's all going to different places. I'm putting them, I'm repurposing them in different places, but they're not me anymore.
Mhm. I like it.
But they each can serve a purpose, right?
Yeah.
Could be business, relationally, whatever it is, but it's not my purpose.
I like the visual. I relate it to my letting go of the doing for the being.
Oh, I
So,
felt when you took that breath.
yeah, yeah, I do more and more these days. Take the breath, let the shoulders down. Breathe the free air. Yeah. Julia, thank you.
This has been amazing. I'm so glad that you took the time to just be so real with me in this time together, and I appreciated all of it. I really this was a very meaningful conversation, so I really
Well, I'll
appreciate
say
it.
it while we're still recording that I feel very grateful to have a lot of great conversations. My favorite ones are what we just did. And I honor your considering and contemplating everything that I directed to you and felt like we got to go on a journey together. So, thank you. And, and thank you. I'll continue thanking you as I take aspects of this and go forward. Palms up,
Palms up. That's gonna be our t-shirt. We're gonna have a t-shirt. Palms up.
palms up.
Palms up, everybody.
Maybe there's the headline for the show.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. And whoever's listening, never lose hope.
Thanks for joining us in the discussion. That again is Julia Garcia, Dr. Julia Garcia. The book, The 5 Habits of Hope, Stories and Strategies to Help You Find Your Way. And she does walk through all 5 of these habits, and you can get that book anywhere and everywhere. Till next time, here's to you and me making better meaning from our lives and experiencing the miracle of living.
Yeah.